Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic and a medium. Today I'm super happy to have a good friend of mine, a fantastic astrologer. Actually, she's an evolutionary astrologer. This is important stuff. You're going to want to pay attention because this is called life hack. We are going to teach you today how to figure out some patterns that might be happening in your life, some things that might be tripping you up, and you're like, why is this always happening, or why does this thing always show up, or why does this person always do this? Guess what? Today we're going to help you with the why, and then we're going to teach you the how, and then Dabney's going to help you understand how to fix it. So I know, super awesome to have you. Thank you so much, Dabney. And you can check her out. I'll leave all her information in the description. She does have a few sessions open. You guys, every time she's on, she gets booked totally full. So I'm just telling you, do your thing if you're interested. I've had a reading with her. She's amazing. Oh, and don't forget to check out her YouTube channel because it's also packed full of helpful stuff that is going to help you with your life, help you understand what's going on. It's not just astrology. Astrology can be full of big words that don't make any sense. You guys know that I can't do that. And you guys know I love astrology. So that's why I have people like Dabney on here to help me understand. She can help you too. It's Lawless Astrology. You can check her out on YouTube and you can check out her website. But meanwhile, she's going to come on here and help us understand karma and karmic astrology. Thanks for joining me, Dabney. How have you been?
I'm good. Thank you, Susan. I just want to say you're the most generous, kind person, and I am just grateful for your presence in my life. And I'm sure everybody that watches your channel feels the exact same way because I started out as just another one of the people watching your channel. So I just want to say thank you to everything that you've done for me and that you do for everybody that watches your channel.
Thank you, Dabney. I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you. It's a win-win. This is, it's a total, I'm all about the win-win. So, and you guys know I love the life hack. I love to figure out why is this happening after I get, complaining to my spirit guides. Then I call Dabney. She tells me, well, Susan. So anyway, she's going to help you guys today. That's what I'm excited about. So we're going to be talking about patterns and karma, and tell us what we need to know, please, Deb.
Okay, so first of all, I think it's important that people understand just very, very, very high level what astrology is. So astrology is a snapshot of where the planets and the stars were when you were born. So us astrologers, and we have to have a certain kind of mind that we like symbols. We get a map of where things are when you're born. Now, I don't think it's particularly helpful to tell someone your Mercury is in the and it's square your like not everybody is interested in that. What you really want to know is, like you said, why is this happening? Why do I do what I do? Or, a lot of times people just don't value themselves the way they need to value themselves. They've been taught that they're not okay, or, they continue to get reinforcing messages that they should be something other than who they truly are. So I think that the beauty and what I love about astrology is that it gives you a roadmap. So I love maps. I've always loved maps, even since I was a kid, because it's like you can learn how to go from here to here. Do you remember, like, before GPS, we had like the paper maps, and I used to love to get them out and look and circle the places I wanted to go. And so that's what an astrology reading can be like. It can very much be like, this is where I want to go. And a good astrologer can help you get there. Now, an astrologer cannot do the work for you. You have to do the work. But a good astrologer, an evolutionary astrologer, can look at karmic patterns. So that's what I do in a reading. I look at karmic patterns. I look at what's called the North and the South Node. And I don't want to bore you with all the technical stuff. I do look a lot at the planet Pluto. So what I look at is, where have you come from? And now this can be past lives. It can be genetic lineage, like your ancestry, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not psychic like Susan. I'm intuitive, and I read symbols in a chart, But it doesn't really matter because you're just as psychic and intuitive as I am. It's just you have to tune into that piece of what's happening in your life. So a lot of times when I do a reading, I may not have the exact story right, but I've got the symbols and the pieces and I've got the story, right? It might not be the exact expression of how something is happening to someone. But what karma is a repetition. And it's something that you want to break free from. It's something that you want to move past. So there is good karma, right? Good karma often is, you've done something, good in a past life, or you've done something good in this life, and a door opens up for you. I believe that. I do believe that. But when we look at kind of the more challenging, the why me karma, a lot of times in readings, I'll say, people believe it's a tit for tat. They think like, oh, I stole a horse in a past lifetime, so someone's going to steal your car, my car in this lifetime. It's more like you stole a horse in a past lifetime, and then you're going to steal a car in this lifetime. Because a lot of times people are on a merry-go-round. And they do the same things over and over again. They know that like they're in a rut, they're in a groove, and they do the same things over and over again until they make a decision to stop. And that's really the big piece that I want to talk about today is how do we figure out what are those pieces? How do we get out of that repetition? And what are some tools that we can use to kind of raise our consciousness so we don't have to continue to make the same mistakes over and over again? So one example that, I think is pretty familiar to a lot of people, at least it was familiar to me for quite a long time, was I was dating unavailable men. So that's a theme for a lot of people. Like, I can't find the right partner. And you seem to attract the same kind of partner over and over again. And a therapist will tell you there is probably some resonance with one of your parents, that you're recreating, the past pains and, early modeling of love that you received. Or it could be, your innate patterns. But one of the things that was a real gift to me was when I had in my 20s an astrologer, my teacher, do my chart. He really pointed out a very important aspect in my chart, which kind of indicated my own fear of commitment. And that was not something that was on my radar whatsoever. It's easy to say these people are not available. These people are, horrible. I'm not picking the right person. But it really wasn't until I stopped and I really reflected on what he said, and I recognized that I was afraid of commitment. So once I was able to kind of internalize that and recognize what is it I need in a partner that will make it so I'm not afraid of commitment, then I was able to kind of make a little shift. And, if you can see my hands, you make a little shift and you end up in a totally different place. You stay here, you end up in the same place, but you make a tiny shift, you can get to where you want to go. But oftentimes that means reflecting on your energy and what you're bringing to a dynamic, whether it's relationship with a boss, like how many abusive bosses have you had? How many times do you get an illness, but no one can figure out what it is? There are reoccurring things that happen, and that is not to blame anyone. There was a reason why I was afraid of commitment. I had a lot of my own things that I hadn't dealt with. But once you kind of open a door to self-reflection and you kind of identify these patterns, then you are able to take a step forward and then another step forward. And before you know it, you're in a completely different place and you're living a completely different life and you're out of that repetition.
Wow, that is so true. And so what I would like to know, this is all these roads are diverging in my head. Oh my God, this all makes sense. Okay, so karmic patterns, how does that show up in your chart? How can someone like you look at my chart and say, oh, Susan, I'm seeing this likelihood, probably is what you would say, because there's nothing written in stone. we all start off with our chart as babies, and then as we grow, a lot of times we deal with all these things. We grow past them and through them, and we kind of elevate to the higher parts of our signs and our charts, right? But how would you find that in a chart?
So we look at the north and the south node, and the south node is where you come from. And so it is the gifts that you bring into this world, but it's also kind of the places that you were hurt or something didn't work out or something went wrong, and that you decided in this lifetime, I want to do something different. Now, a lot of times what's confusing for people is we'll set up. And so, in my own personal beliefs, that we choose our parents. We choose where we go in this lifetime, because sometimes we need to set up the issue again so we can learn from it. And so we come in as blank slates, but carrying a lot of karma on our back. So, I'll use my own example just because I don't want to, my chart, I have my south node in the 6th house of service, and it's in the sign of Gemini. So what that would indicate is somebody who is very fast thinker. I'm incredibly organized. I know how to get things done. Like those are the gifts that I bring into the world. Like I am a powerhouse, right? But I worry all the time. I overgive. Like the service is just a little bit too much there. And I constantly have a very critical tape playing in my head and a lot of worry. So that could be something that people could relate to. And there's, kind of the karmic story behind that. And so, the more complex thing, and I won't get into too much of it, but then I look at the ruler of the south node and that tells me more. And I look at what aspects it's making. So I'm not going to get into all of that, but just to tell you what I'm supposed to do in this lifetime is learn how to relax and be in spirit and to trust that things will work out and to take big leaps of faith and to meditate and to be a spiritual teacher rather than this kind of in servitude, taking care of everybody, running around like a chicken, So do I have gifts that I bring in? Absolutely. Has it helped me get to my north node? Absolutely. But do I have to recognize when I am out of balance and that I'm in my own rut of self-criticism, of doing too much, of, it's that I have to still be reminded by my husband. You're giving too much, you're doing too much, you're going to burn out, you got to slow down. So I think that is just one example. And there are countless examples. I see people who come from like monastic lifetimes where they're here to experience life because they were a nun or a priest in a past life and they were really focused on scripture. And here they didn't get to learn about themselves, and in this lifetime they need to go out and experience the world and recapture their own individuality. So there's all different permutations of what I see in a chart, but what that can tell you is like, if here's the roadmap, here you want to go from Seattle to Monterey, here's how you get there. And that's what I love about an astrology reading, is it's the map. Now, you have to drive the car. You have to be the one that gets from Seattle to Monterey, but the map tells you how to get there. And that's what I love about astrology, because once I had the rule book, like in Beetlejuice, like when you die, like they gave you a rule book, So once you have, like, it's like, oh, that's what I'm doing wrong. That's what I'm doing right. Where you can accept yourself, okay? That's another thing I see often is people think they should be something that they're not. They were told as children, or they were told by society, you're bad because you didn't, you know, you didn't get married and have 2 children and have a white picket fence. Well, some people aren't supposed to do that. You know, some people are supposed to try a lot of different things. Some people are supposed to have a lot of different relationships to resolve different kinds of karma. There's all different. And so once you can kind of recognize, like, oh, that's why I do what I do. Oh, so I stick my foot in my mouth all the time. I'm very blunt, you know, I go right into the heart of things, and I like make people's unconscious conscious constantly. People don't always like that. So I've had to learn to like one, ease back a little bit, but also know when I do that, if the person on the receiving end doesn't like it, that's just not a person for me. We're just not a good fit. And so it's not necessarily that I've done something wrong. I have just misaligned myself with someone. And so that's the other thing, is like being in alignment with who's in your tribe, who are the right people that are going to help you get out of these ruts. So that's the biggest thing I want people to walk away from our conversation today, is if you find that you're in a pattern that keeps repeating, like the same thing is happening to you over and over again, just stop and question why. That's the first step. Once you know the why, and you know, say, why am I doing this? Like, don't ask, like, why is this being done to me? Because you can't help what's being done to you. You can only change yourself. You can't change other people. So that's a really important thing to recognize, like, okay, so what am I bringing to this energy? What's the piece that I can control? And then once you know that, you can talk to people that you trust and love. You can talk to an astrologer. You can talk to a psychic. Like, you can talk to some people about maybe some tools to get you on the road, get you on the right path, you know? And there's gonna be gas stations along the way from Seattle to Monterey, and you're gonna have, you know, distractions, and you're gonna have road stops, but at the same time, you have such an amazing ability to have an adventure, to love yourself, and to get to where you're going and manifest a very different life. But you have to actively participate in that and recognize that things aren't being done to you. You're bringing a certain energy to any dynamic that you're in.
It's so true. 100% true. And I like the way you say, when you see a pattern, you have to really think about it from your perspective instead of and it's not the first thing you think of, because you want to say, why is it always happening to me? I'm a nice person. I don't treat people like this, but why does everybody treat me like this? So when you flip that energy around to, okay, obviously this is a pattern. That's the most important thing, because that is the biggest area that you can change your life. Is you just look at your patterns, whatever they are, that's a gift. You have been giving a gift. You can now say, okay, now from my perspective, why is this happening? What am I doing? How am I, you know, involved in this? Like you said, maybe you're picking the wrong person, but really it gets down to the energy, because it's not the wrong person. The husband, the wife can actually be just like your mother, or just like your spouse, or just like your boss, or your neighbor. Even pets get in on this. To be honest with you, it's all about teaching you a lesson. And I think you said this before we went live, before we did our recording, but you said people get on a merry-go-round, and that's so true, right? You're just reincarnating round and round and round on this merry-go-round. And once you've been around that thing, and you're like, you know, the scenery is the same. You know what I mean? Like, these patterns are continuing. So when people so the difference, I also want to say, there's a difference between an evolutionary astrologer and a regular astrologer, I think. I tend to really enjoy evolutionary astrologers, probably because of the whole evolve word. But so when they come to someone like you, and you can say, these are some themes that you might be experiencing in your life, and you can give them that roadmap, and you can say, okay, get off the merry-go-round and actually go experience new things. I mean, is it pretty succinct? Like you're able to say, well, I see that you've got a pattern around love or a pattern around overgiving or something like that. And then they can literally take that with them and say, okay, this is an area that I really need to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, a good astrologer will be able to do that. I think when people go to an astrologer and ask, "Well, when do you see that I'm gonna get married?" Or when am I gonna get a new job? That's a lot tougher because what we're looking at is energy. We're energy workers. And so we interpret symbols and we can tell you what the right timing is for love to come into your life. But you can have the best timing in the world to have love to come into your life. But if you sit at home in your kitchen and, are clipping coupons for, every day and never leave, just watching TV, you're not going to meet somebody. And so that's kind of what I mean by you have to drive the car. So yes, I do believe there are really good predictive astrologers out there. I'm not a predictive astrologer. I'm the first to admit that. Susan and I were sort of talking before we went live, and I'm more like a cheerleader coach. Like I'm going to identify what's really good about you. What are the gifts that you bring into this world? And I'm going to tell that to you. I have a video on my channel where I talk about don't go to an astrologer to have them, see your future, because I don't have a crystal ball. What I have is a map of your best life. And I am not going to tell you anything scary. I'm not going to tell you you're going to die tomorrow because I can't see that. What I can see is, oh, okay, you may have some health issues coming up, but I can also see this is a great time to go to the doctor. Like a good astrologer is going to empower you, not scare you. And anybody that tells you that they know what the future is 100,000%, which I know Susan does not do this, because we have free will. Because that analogy that I gave earlier, you could be trucking along and I can see the future is going to end up down there, but you take this turn and you're over here now. And so that's free will. People make choices. Your husband made a choice. Your wife made a choice. Your neighbor made a choice. We don't always like the choices other people make. Your son made a choice. This is the thing. We can't control the choices other people make. We can't as much as we want to. And it's so hard when we have loved ones that are trapped in addiction or, so this is the other thing I want to clarify, because Susan, as we all know, I can stick my foot in my mouth. So, and I misspeak sometimes. So what I want to say very clearly is this is not a blaming of the victim situation. Okay. So if, you have chronic illnesses or you've been in several abusive relationships, I'm in no way shaming you and saying this is your fault. What I'm saying is there a way that we can help look at the patterns and break free from them? So, I for a long time had a pattern of attracting narcissistic people into my life. And I didn't really even understand what narcissism was. And so I didn't have the tools to not only break free from them, but to not have them push me and pull me on a roller coaster, right? If your emotions are up and down, you don't have to react to everything. And that was a really, really key thing. Once I understood the concept of narcissism, I could understand the concept of gray rocking. I could understand the concept of, really taking care of myself and setting good boundaries. So I do want to make sure that I was very clear about that it is not your own fault if you are in an abusive relationship or if you have chronic illnesses, but there still may be a way for you to break free.
100%. Absolutely. And I would just add, and I've talked about this a lot, that when you're on the merry-go-round, you're sort of in a pattern, and the solution is always outside of the pattern. The merry-go-round is the continuance of, that particular karma or whatever it is that you're experiencing. So I want you guys to understand that solution is going to come out from left field, right? It could be something like, for instance, Dabney shared, well, this astrologer says, well, you're not trusting people in relationships, which is left field. What do you mean? I'm the one trusting. They're the ones that are trustworthy. Do you guys see how the reverse actually ended up being the thing that set her free once she realized, oh, wait, snap, I've got this thing going on that I wasn't aware of. And I always tell you guys with this shadow work, whatever's happening on the inside that you're not aware of is being projected all around your life. So if you'll look out, and Dabney, you have a way of, how do you describe that? Didn't you describe that earlier? I hate to put you on the spot, but I feel like when you look outside, you see, what do you say?
Yeah. Also, if you want to if you want to know what your karma is, look at your present life situation. Because most likely you are setting up the same circumstances as your karma in some way. It's going to rhyme in some way. So if you are overexhausted and you are, working too much or whatever the thing is, there are solutions, but you have to wake up to the fact that I need to change something. Something needs to change. And so I look, at our country right now, and that's shadow work that we've been doing. There's something, and I think you talk about this, Susan, there's something we need to learn collectively. And so it's very much like that in our own lives. And nobody's perfect. We all have lessons to learn. And I'm still learning things all the time. And I still have to be reminded when I'm in my groove, because that's what it is. It's just a groove. It's like, this is what I know. This is how I do things. And people have to reel me back in, And so that's also surrounding yourself with loved ones that actually that you can hear, and you have to empower them to give you, once you know what it is that you want to work on, the people that you trust, you can empower them to remind you, hey, you know what? You don't need to call the doctor again 10 times for your mother. You can just do it once, So whatever the issues are that you're working on, there's so many millions of examples out there, but I think that there's a lot of aha moments. And when I do astrology readings for people, what a lot of times they say is, I'm still processing. And I think that's good, because that means they're sitting with that, oh, whoa, I hadn't thought about it in that way. I watched an episode of, it was Survivor or something, one of those kind of survivalist shows. And there was this woman and she just complained about everything, and the person that was, they were on a duo thing. And he said, and he didn't complain at all. And he was having the exact same circumstances as she was, And then somehow they started talking and he called it to her attention. And she didn't even know that she was doing it. She had no idea, they were both freezing. They were both, starving. They were both bitten by bugs. And he basically said, you can choose to be miserable and complain constantly, but all that's doing is reminding you of your bad circumstance. And it was by the end of the, several shows, she thanked him because she had no awareness. And sometimes we just have no awareness of where we're doing things that is just not productive or helpful. I don't know. Do you agree with that, Susan? Or have you seen that?
I totally do. When you were saying that, I felt for that woman, or maybe for a lot of us, it goes back to asking for something that we're not getting as children. You see those children that are constantly saying, daddy, mommy, 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 1,000 times, because they're used to no one listening. So it almost becomes a self-soothing thing, right? So I feel that very much makes sense. And it's really about self-awareness. It's exactly what you said. It's about self-awareness. If you can find someone, and I talked about this in my last Wisdom on Wednesday, there are people in your life that get you, that appreciate you, that are there for you. And 9 times out of 10, we don't want to really listen to them or even hang with them, because we're focused on this person over here who doesn't really, for whatever reason, see us or understand us, or they have something that we want. We want to prove ourselves to them. So in your own life, just look around and look for those people that are there for you, that kind of like you the way you are right now, because that's you. you have to like yourself the way you are right now, even stuck on the merry-go-round, even if you have the, and especially honestly, when you have the aha moment, I don't think there's a lower place in your life as to when you go, oh, darn, these are all patterns and I see it now and my life is a shite show. And I don't know how I got here and I don't know how to get out of it, but now I see it and it's horrifying. You know, and it's like, it's really, these aha moments can be pretty devastating in a sense. So that's where it's really important to bring that self-love, right? To cheer yourself through it. You're okay, Susan. You're going to be okay. This is good. Now you know what the pattern is. And the other thing I want you to hear is you don't have to solve it all. Like, whenever you see the problem, sometimes you're like, okay, now I just want to solve it. I want to snap my fingers and solve it. But it's not that easy because these are interpersonal problems, right? There might be a spouse or a child or some work situations. You're not going to solve it overnight, but how you do solve it is from in here, not from out. You don't go to them and say, I just realized you're a narcissist. and you really need to get a load of yourself, right? I mean, that's not going to be the best way to deal with that. But once you realize that person is a narcissist, wait a minute, all three of these people are narcissists, then you can go to YouTube and figure out, like you mentioned, how to gray rock, which is an important thing to do. And then you're starting to change how you interact with them. And that's the key, you guys. It's all from inside of you. And that's how you address the pattern. And also, when you go to an astrologer, you're saying, I'm worthy. I want to fix this. I want some tools. I want to know more about myself, which is so important, right? I think that is such an important step. And it's the thing that's going to give you the most bang for your buck in having the better life that you want to have.
I love that you said that getting an astrology reading is an act of self-love, because I completely agree. Because when else do you have an hour or an hour and a half where someone is just devoted to supporting you? You know, I mean, it's kind of like going and getting a massage and or Reiki healing. Like, what are the healing modalities that you need? But if you are feeling badly about yourself, or if you're someone who continually, kind of is self-critical, going to an empowering astrologer, feel into who is the right astrologer for you. I may not have availability. I may not be the right astrologer for you. I can always recommend people, but feel into who has the right energy for you and what you're needing. And, sometimes maybe you need like a tough love astrologer who's going to really lay it on the line. Like, everybody's different, but most likely you want somebody who's going to take a look at that chart and, make you understand like the gifts that you bring into this world. So then when you get those aha moments, which kind of, can be a little like, whoa, God, you're right. Like, I complain all the time, or whatever the thing is. And by the way, I would never tell someone in a reading that they complain all the time, but I might say like, hey, you have a glass half empty kind of mentality. And is there ways that we could look at, turning that around to a glass half full, right? Like, so, do you need a gentle astrologer? So just feel into and look at their websites and like, does the language they use resonate with you? Because there are some destructive astrologers out there. I'm not going to lie. There's some people that will tell you that tomorrow you're going to meet the man of your dreams. And again, free will, like, we are individual beings. And I love what Susan said, like, it comes from within. Everything comes from within. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And, consciousness is not easy. It is a lifetime work. To get to your North Node, it takes a lifetime. And I do readings for people of all ages, and it's really fun for me to see people that, start to get it in midlife and later. It's like you have to go through the, like, getting knocked down a lot. A lot of wisdom comes from divorces. A lot of wisdom comes from illness. A lot of, we have to get knocked down a lot. And yes, you can see those patterns in an astrology chart for timing, but how they express themselves and what you do with it, you know, like, do you stop at the gas station and get some beef jerky? Do you go to McDonald's for fries? You know, like those are the choices we make along the way. Or do you get a salad? Because that's
Or
what
you
you're
get a
supposed to do.
salad right now. I don't. The guides told me, and this is how you know it's guidance. When they said, I heard myself say out loud, literally out loud, I need a salad. And I was like, that's not me. That's not me talking right there. I know that. But it's true. And I would also say that what the guides were saying while you were talking, Dabney, that people will go through growth spurts, right? You might have a time when you go get the astrology, you get the psychic, you get the numerology, you get the therapy. You literally like have a growth spurt. You're like, woo, okay. And then there's times where you're chill, where your field is fallow. You're just like doing a chill time, and that is all okay, because just like Dabney said, this is a lifelong thing. This is not I got to get this fixed by Saturday kind of thing. So allow yourself that time also, and that grace to say, I just don't have the energy. I don't have the energy to work on myself right now, and that's okay, because acknowledging that is valuing yourself.
And it's not about criticizing yourself either.
Yeah.
And it is about right timing. I mean, it was 4 years after I realized that I was the one with the fear of commitment that I met my husband. And there was a lot of work I did in that time. I did all sorts of spiritual work. And so don't be discouraged if things don't change overnight. You're going to get to a new place. I think that's the most important thing, is understanding. And like you also said, for astrologers, when we see a big Pluto transit or we see a lot of Saturn, we know you're gearing up to do some hard work. But sometimes you have a lot of Neptune transits, and that's just a little bit about like what life does to you, and you have to go with the flow and try to be conscious, but it's a little bit of a flowy thing. So there's times when Pluto is nowhere to be seen in your chart, and you're not necessarily supposed to be digging into the dirt. You're supposed to be, going for a hike and just enjoying the birds and the rainbows.
That's so awesome. I love that. That is super helpful. Is there anything else you want to leave people with before we wrap it up?
I think the first piece is sort of the wrap up to me. Is the first piece is just recognizing the repetitive challenge. Like, what is the repetition? Then we say, like, well, how am I potentially contributing to this repetition? What could be the thing that, like, I keep saying keeps happening to me, but it might be a projection, and it might be an unconscious projection. So once you have that identified, then you do need help often. You need tools. You need to talk to friends. You need to talk to loved ones. You need an astrologer. You need a psychic. You need a, numerologist or Reiki, whatever the thing is that seems to work for you, or just meditating or going for hikes. But whatever it is, that's the action that you take, where it's actually self-love. It's about healing yourself, forgiving yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't hurt yourself. Don't continue to harm yourself. It's about acceptance. When you shine a light on something, you see it. And sometimes that can be really jarring. But then you can accept it. You see it. It's there. It's no longer in the shadows. We can accept it. And that's when you start to do the work. And there's a lot of different ways to do the work, but it has to do with conscious effort. You have to stop yourself when you're in that pattern again. Catch yourself every single time. Catch yourself like, oh, I'm doing that again. Okay, I don't have to. Or you did it, and then, oh, I did that again. It's okay. Try next time. Just keep trying, and try to have some fun in life. That's the other thing, is we all don't have enough fun. There's all sorts of horrible things going on in the world. I get it. It's awful. But let's, sometimes you just got to enjoy an ice cream cone or a good glass of wine, or dancing with your partner, or laughing with a child. Like, that's the reason we live. So just don't get in your head and beat yourself up, but try something new. That's what I would wrap up with.
Wow, I love the fun part. That is so true. Oh my God. Well, I hope you guys have found this video helpful. If you enjoyed meeting Dabney, if this is your first time, or if you saw her on my channel before, check out her channel, and it's lawlessastrology.com, right? Is your website.
That's my website. Yep. And you can just find me on YouTube at Lawless Astrology.
Yeah, yeah. She is, you're just kind of getting your channel kind of really launched. So you guys should get down on the ground floor and subscribe, because you can see how helpful she is. You can see this is why I love astrologers like Dabney. They're down to earth, they're helpful, and it's easy to get this information that is so helpful, right? It's not full of complicated terms or definitions of people. And I just can't help it. When you start talking about conjuncts and squares, I'm like, is that the good one or the bad one? Which one is the good one? Is this one? So then I'm missing the data. I'm missing the important thing because I'm trying to figure out what is what. So if you go to her channel, you're going to get down to earth, useful information. And again, she's got some openings, so check out her website. And I know we're going to get together again. I hope she'll come back and join me again in the future. And take really good care of yourself, okay? Take this advice, listen to this video again, take some notes, and be kind and gentle to yourself.
Yeah, and I try to respond to some of the comments. So if you have questions too, or if you have narcissists in your life, I'm happy to give you some recommendations. So yeah, I really am grateful to you, Susan, for bringing me on, and I hope that this information is somewhat inspiring for people.
Oh my God, I think it will be. So yeah, you guys leave us a comment. Take really good care. We'll see you again next time.